Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, hanging out with these nerds.
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is Ted.
And today we're going to be reforging 5e with DawnForgedCast.
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Now, I know a lot of you guys are fans of the DawnForgedCast channel as well, and you're looking around going, where is he? You said DawnForgedCast. He's not actually here, only in spirit.
He's in the spirit of these pages.
So, 5e Reforged is a product recently put out by Andrew Armstrong. There will be a link to it in the description below, where you can go purchase your own PDF copy. And it's very much, if you enjoy that channel and the way Andrew Armstrong runs his games, then this is kind of like a must-have for you. I'm not in love with everything in there, I'm not going to lie to you guys. But the things that I don't like have nothing to do with how they're executed, the mechanics, game balance. It has to do with personal preference and how I run my game compared to maybe how Andrew runs his game. It's all very well done.
And you get 24 pages, a lot of spectacular art that is really in flavor with 5e. Now we have here the printer-friendly version, so that we can kind of be able to go through it and not kill the printer.
Like, spectacular art. I can't talk about that because I've only seen the printer-friendly version. So
Yeah.
Beyond actual mechanics that are in here, there is a nice bump of
tips. He gives a lot of really good tips for dungeon masters, especially if you're new, right in the very beginning. Organizing the game, organizing your players, talks about social contracts, the session zero, how you would run your game online as opposed to in person.
Right.
These are a lot of really good tips that I feel like you probably have gotten from our channel and his channel as well. But there's something to be said for being able to have a document that you can reference and go back to and go, oh, you know, because it's easy to forget things if you don't have them right on hand. So I think it's a very useful tool.
I agree. Now, beyond those tips, there is a lot of things in here that, since it's called Reforged, it really is retooling what's in the player's handbook. There's some things that he feels 5e is not handled correctly, or things are just a little unbalanced towards that bounded accuracy. So there's a whole section on classes and how he's refinagled them a little bit. He gives new item types and as well as some new class features that I think are pretty cool.
Yeah, also, too, like with each class, it also gives a recommended alignment. Range, really, not specifically you should be lawful good or chaotic evil.
For clerics, you should probably be in line more with what your deity's alignment is.
Monks, it says to avoid chaotic. Paladins, it says to avoid evil. But I mean, those are suggested guidelines for your base of that particular class. But there's always going to be times where you come up with an interesting archetype that fits into that odd moniker.
Right. He's taken a couple feats, he's retooled them because he felt they weren't up to snuff. But then he's also added a whole slew of new feats. Do you know how many new feats he had? A half a dozen, possibly?
Yeah, 6 or so.
A bunch of new
Maybe
magic items. I like his breakdown of magic items because he does both unattuned magic items and attuned magic items. And then also he's incorporated a couple new things, tattoo magic. So if you wanted to incorporate that into your game. Also, he's got something called shards, which is basically, instead of always, having to put into the game magic items that your players would use. Oh, look, here's a spike chain, even though it's not really in 5th edition. But here's a magic spike chain, just like what our fighter uses. Instead of going down that route all the time, you can get these shards and imbue them into your gear, create magic items from them.
From our own history, people like to play with those odd weapon types. And in 3rd edition, I had an orc or a half orc that fought with a double sword, and double swords weren't very common. They're an odd weapon type.
Yes.
So I had to wait much longer for Dave the DM to find a way to put in a double sword that would be specific for my character. And in fact, we had it in our party treasure for a session or two before we actually found out what it was. To answer your question, there are 6 new feats in here and 2 feats that have been slightly retooled.
Also, he also changes or adds to the Druid of the Land, kind of a new class feature. He incorporates rules for animal companions.
Magic shards. All right. So the thing I like and don't like about magic shards is that idea that, you have a magic shard instead of having like a +1 double sword, which who the heck's going to have one of those? So it also gives that like the characters that have like the ancestral sword that got passed down from their grandfather who was in the war or something. You're not like, ooh, a +1 sword. Bye, grandfather sword. So it's you can just add to that and keep that original weapon rather than having
that is the first thing that I thought of when I looked at that. Beyond the inherited type situation, the magic shards, their descriptions actually talk about there are ways for an NPC to offer as a boon. Well, he's just going to essentially use the rules for those shards, but you don't have a choice in the matter. It's bestowed upon one of your items.
Yeah,
or all of your items is the one example he used.
Though overall, I mean, the one thing I don't like about it is that it feels like it's shifting more back towards like 3.5 for some things, like the magic shards, like that additional stuff on top of things. But I think overall, I like the.
Well, there's a lot of that, and fair enough. Andrew Armstrong comes from your third edition in Pathfinder, so
it makes sense. It makes sense influence for
Well, as with everything, the DM is going to choose what level of power that he's going to keep his players at. And if you like the concept of the shards, as the DM, you can give them out as frequently or infrequently as you see fit. I see as a new item type, there's only benefit here, and it only just inspires further to say, okay, well, here's some options of shards that are there. What else can you come up with? And you can be able to imbue different abilities. And it even says in here that like you can put a shard into an item that doesn't have a mechanical plus and figure out, okay, well, what kind of thing does it do? So
yeah, I feel like the magic item section is actually the strongest section in here that it interests me the most. There's a magic longbow that doesn't require arrows. Like when you pull back the string, it forms an arrow of ice, which I thought was freaking awesome. And he does have quite a few of those things that are really cool like that. He has got a ton of new magic items in here. He also covers some areas where 5th edition is really very wishy-washy. Like, you guys figure it out. Like for instance, treasure and wealth by level. So if you wanted to start a higher level game and you don't know what your player should start with, like you can reference that, and he does a good job with that. Also, there's other things like proficiencies. He gives a better breakdown of how to use them, especially when it comes to crafting and using tools and stuff like that. Like
skilled versus unskilled.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he also gives that. He has some optional rules for putting more proficiencies in the game. So there's a section that covers skills pretty thoroughly as well.
The Ice Shard Longbow, beyond it automatically forming your arrow, it also
does additional ice damage.
No, it actually allows you to cast the spell Conjure Barrage, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It does both of them. It's a really cool magic item.
Yes.
Magic items, what was it?
So the next thing I want to talk about is classes.
Okay.
He actually has a whole new archetype or domain for cleric in here that I really enjoyed. And when I was talking to you about it, you're like, oh, this harkens back to the 2nd edition. Because the Overlord domain.
Dude, it literally feels like it could have been ripped out of the player's handbook.
From the 2nd
edition, unless it was in the DMG, whichever book it was in,
right.
Yeah.
So, like, at 8th level, you begin to attract followers. And every level, the number of followers, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to, begins to double. So at 20th level, you would have like 12,000 followers that are all working in your grand cause. And I'm like, that sounds really cool.
Built-in army.
Yeah, there was in the earlier editions, there were several classes that began acquiring different followers, and cleric was one of them, and fighter was one of them, and I believe a wizard would start getting apprentices and stuff like that. So it's a cool element of the game to put back in. it can be a little difficult and unwieldy for a GM, but he also gives some advice on using that stuff as well.
Right. He talks about using them like in between sessions, communicate with your GM to say what they're doing, and these guys are going to go work on their own quest. And you can get essentially like after action reports of, okay, well, they were successful or they were wiped out to a man. Like,
No, I bring them all to the fight, and I'm rolling individual initiative.
well, it actually specifically says not like that they're not going to just go on adventures.
Yeah.
So like
They're
thought
for
that
doing
was,
stuff for when they're minions for doing stuff.
So I actually like that was really well incorporated within that. Within the rule set.
He also covers masterwork items for mundane armor, shields, and weapons, and they each have a little bit of the different rules for depending on what they do, which was also kind of cool. So if you wanted to put masterwork stuff back in your game, and it is slightly modified from 3rd edition, but not exactly. I mean, the pricing is straight out of 3rd edition. 300 gold pieces to add masterwork to your weapon. That was straight up 3rd edition, so that's cool. And listen, guys, when I say like, this could have been ripped right out of 2nd edition, or this came right, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think I like it. Like I take it as an homage to the sources. Then he kind of bolts on the mechanics that make it work. Like his masterwork gear, he put them together in a way that it doesn't screw with bounded accuracy, but it still gives you a benefit to having it. I think too, Ted, you said you really dug the tattoo magic stuff.
I think it's really cool. I think the different features with different levels, including like level requirements to get them. I don't know how much it speaks to like what it takes to be a level 10 class. What makes that change to say, okay, well, you can handle the kind of power of this tattoo. So like that's clearly a mechanical thing, whereas most magic items don't say that. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit speaking to what that means to an actual world.
Well, I feel like you can get the tattoo, you just can't activate it until you've achieved a certain level of power, whatever that means.
But beyond that, I mean, like I said, I love the system, and I'm ready to just incorporate that into my.
But you
world.
said you would have liked to have seen it elaborated on a little bit more.
Yes, that's where I was getting to. There, with everything else that's in here, I feel that he's broken it down mechanically. And since the tattoos, it says you need to either have this skill and go ahead and be able to perform this, or go to someone that can do it. There's no cost associated, and since it's essentially imbuing magical energies into you, would you correlate that to with the base magic item value that he shows earlier on in the book?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely apply that. Though I guess I get what you're saying, though, is because Andrew has done such a great job with kind of like breaking things down everywhere else. In this one spot, like even if it was just one sentence saying refer to magic item value chart or something, because everything else he did is very specific, which is going to be helpful for you guys if you want to incorporate this stuff into your game. So, overall, I like it. I think it's good. Like I said, even the things I didn't personally care for or wouldn't use, I didn't feel like they were done poorly or badly, just that it's a difference of play style.
Yeah, I'm very happy. Like I said, I'm ready to play the Overlord Cleric. I'm ready to.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple things.
5 Overlord Clerics all together.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple things that he put in this, and the 5e Reforged that is going into our game. We've already been discussing it. We're like, should we run this by the group? Or me and Ted are usually the DMs. We're like, do we really need to run it by? We can just do it.
We're the DMs. We can just say this is how it's happening in our game.
The fist of God says make it so.
I wasn't quite going that far. But.
I'll just exclude it if I don't like it.
So, guys, check out the link. Go pick this up. It's well worth the cost. After you've had a chance to read it, put your thoughts and comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on Facebook.
Also, check out the articles over at Nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.